Have a watch of this astonishing conversation between a student at Oxford University and Ben Shapiro. The student seems to be sympathizing with Hamas and has an exceptionally distorted and ignorant view of history. And you've really got to see it to believe it. And it's important that we watch this because we see not just the arguments dismantled, but also how to respond to such distorted arguments. Have a watch.
Ben, it's an absolute displeasure to see me standing. Well, it's absolute. I will get to my question, however.
Thank you for coming anyway.
My displeasure. Now, I'll repeat the question that I sought to ask
childish.
you. You have recently been discussing a lot about the history of the occupation of Palestine. I will call it that. I know you will oppose that, but I will call it that. The occupation of Palestine.
The whole thing, right? Just to be clear?
The entirety of Palestine.
Thank you.
You may accuse me of genocide if you wish. That is not my position.
Sure. And I will, but go ahead.
Anyway, so the point about the occupation of Palestine, you have released multiple videos. You have essentially made yourself the cheerleader of Israel in a lot of sort of Western media spaces. So I watched some of your videos about the conflict, and I found a number of inaccuracies. First of all, you describe in 1920, you refer to Jordan as part of Palestine historically. That has never been the case. There has never been a state of Jordan.
British Mandate Palestine, yes.
That is still not the case. Jordan has never been part or considered part of Palestine. The only time that Jordan has been considered adjacent to Palestine is part of sort of biblical mythology where Transjordan was a reason.
That's wildly inaccurate. The
That
British Mandate had a mandate over all of Palestine.
Yeah, and by the way, I'd just like to stop for a second to show this to you. This is the British Mandate of Palestine, the map, okay? So here you go. As you can see it clearly here, right? That's it. So it included Jordan, all right? And it was, they created Transjordan. That was meant to be part of Palestine. And by the way, when the Balfour Declaration came out, this was meant, when they said Palestine as a future homeland for the Jews, it would include what then became Jordan. And they decided to give it away to Jordan as well. Yeah, that's a really important point to show. Again, totally inaccurate from this student.
And then they separated off Transjordan and handed it to the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan.
You will get your chance to reply. Let me finish. Now, the second point that you have phrased constantly and consistently, and it's quite a popular Zionist talking point, is the fact that the Arabs have rejected peace every time it was offered to them. Now, I would like, of course, there's been multiple times where peace has been offered, so let's discuss some of them. The Peel Commission. The Peel Commission entailed expelling multiple Arab families and multiple Arab communities, largely agrarian, from the land in order to create a Jewish state under a colonial authority. Now, I understand, of course, you are a Zionist, so you believe that's desirable. But for the Palestinian farmers, I can imagine they would not have enjoyed that. Number two, you mention that that after 1948, the Arabs had the chance to negotiate and make peace with Israel. Apart from the fact that in 1956, Israel invaded the Sinai in Egypt, unprovoked, purely due to the fact that President Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal. Then you claim that the 1967 war was a war of extermination. But if you will read any trusted and respected historian over the 1967 war, and perhaps you may even decide to read some of the books of Moshe Dayan about the actual conflict, where he describes that Israel actually provoked the conflict and there was no chance of the extermination of Israel. Then you claim that the 1973 war was a war of the destruction of Israel once again, which it was not. It was actually the reclaiming of the Sinai and the Golan Heights, which Israel has illegally occupied. So,
just have to pause again. This is so ridiculous. If you listen to the Arab leaders in 67, 73, they are utterly clear what their plan is. It's for the destruction of Israel. I don't know where this guy gets his facts from. It's just like he's buried his head in the sand or just looking at everything through distorted glasses. Bizarre.
You have lied multiple times. I can continue.
No, he has.
If you would wish. But I would like to ask you the question. When you lie, do you feel shame?
Okay, so
it's clear this guy has no shame.
in order for me to feel shame, I would have to be lying, as opposed to you just being wrong about all of these things which you are. So let me start from the very beginning of what you said. Let's try to go through the calendar. British Mandate Palestine was ruled by the British. They carved off Transjordan in 1920, and Transjordan was made into Transjordan with a Hashemite kingdom, which, by the way, is not domestic to the actual area of Jordan. So if you're talking about a colonial outpost, Jordan would be it, since the Hashemite kingdom has nothing to do with the actual Palestinian Arabs who are living in Transjordan. Talking about the Peel Commission. If the idea is that there would have to be a separation of populations in order to effectuate a two-state solution, which you deny, then I was right. Of course, there was a deal on the table. The Jews accepted it. The Arabs rejected it. So you did not actually undermine my case.
In his diary,
there should be no deal in the first place.
in his diary states.
Hold on. I listened to your whole bullshit history for like 5 minutes here. So at least let me respond to it.
Amazing. And he didn't let Ben interrupt him. But now it's just this guy. Really.
Your entire claim is that the Arabs did not reject peace, and then in your own disquisition, you admitted that the Arabs rejected the Peel Commission plan, which was a separation between the Jews and the Arabs, which gave an extraordinary amount of land to the Arabs. The Arabs then rejected the peace partition.
And by the way, just to pause again so you can see that. The Peel Commission, so think about what the land was promised in the original Balfour Declaration. This would have been the Peel Commission. Okay, so have a look at this. The orange would have gone to a future Arab state. And the tiny strip at the top would have been a Jewish state in green. Okay? And they still rejected that. The Jews said yes, and they still rejected that.
Plan proposed by the United Nations in 1947. They then proceeded to reject the Oslo Accords in 93. After that, they rejected the Wye River Accords in 98. They rejected Ehud Barak's very generous offer in 2000. They rejected Olmert's very generous offer in 2008. Every single peace deal that has been proposed by Israel or anyone else has been rejected by the Arabs for a very simple reason, which was the very first question I asked you. You do not accept that there should be a Jewish state anywhere in this region. So as long as that's the case, there's literally nothing to argue about. You cannot simultaneously maintain the position there should not be a Jewish state anywhere in the region and then tell me that I'm wrong when I say that the Arabs will not accept a two-state solution. You yourself say that there should not be a two-state solution.
So the first point I'll firstly address the last point that you made about the Palestine and whether there should be a Jewish state. The point you are making there is you're suggesting that the Arabs will not accept a Jewish state. Well, the reason that the Arabs would not accept the Jewish state is multifaceted.
It's complex.
Let me finish. So the reason that it's multifaceted is due to a variety of dynamics.
It's because it's Jewish.
The Zionist movement arrived as a settler colonial project, and it is described as that. You can read the books of Jablonski. You can read Zionist literature from the early 20th century. It states that it was a colonial project. Now let's address the lies.
Another lie. Let's be clear. Israel is a decolonization project. The Jewish people came from that land 2,000 years ago. They were exiled forcefully. The Arabs invaded the land, the Islamic conquest in the 7th century, and the land actually remained largely desolate. Jews always maintained a presence there. They had a majority in Jerusalem by the 1800s, majority Jewish, and actually much of the Arab population that grew in the land prior to Israel's establishment grew when Jews started coming back and purchasing land and making the land thrive again. But this is absolutely a 180 reality that this guy's living in. The truth is that the Arabs were the colonizers of the land, and the Jews are the original inheritors of the land, the eternal inheritors of the land. I mean, where does he think the story of Christmas happened? Where Jesus, the Jew, was born in Bethlehem. I mean, it's just... I don't know what planet this guy's living on.
That you mentioned. Let's address the refutation that you made. In 1937, the Peel Commission, if you read the diaries of David Ben-Gurion, he explicitly states that the partition was a temporary move to ensure the conquest of the full land. In 1948, there had already been an intercommunal civil war in Palestine, which had seen Jewish defense forces versus the Arab forces. There was already a conflict that preceded 1948. To claim that the Arabs simply rejected the UN partition.
Yes, there was a conflict. Why? Because there was anti-Semitism. There were pogroms against Jews in the 1920s because they didn't like Jews. Okay, the Jewish people didn't have to fight the Arabs if they'd have said, yeah, we're happy to live with you. It's not complicated.
The plan is once again ahistorical. You then make...
They literally rejected it. How could it be ahistorical if they literally rejected it?
If there was a war beforehand,
And once again, you just
then
reject
Shapiro-
fundamentally the existence of the state of Israel, period.
When
So
I
how can...
attempted to interrupt you, I was told to silence. So I would ask you again, please shut up. My point now, I would like to continue. And you then mention the, what was the peace plan you mentioned after?
Okay, which one should we do? Should we do the...
We finished 1948. What after?
Okay, so there was the 2000 peace plan from Ehud Barak.
Okay.
There's the 2008 peace plan from Ehud Olmert.
at a
There's the
time.
pullout of Israel from Gaza Strip in 2005, handing it over to Hamas.
Let's get the next person up now.
All right. Thank you very much.
It's just astonishing the amount of lies that this guy is prepared to say. I mean, I don't know whether he willingly is lying or he's just so delusional that he's just prepared to adopt such nonsense. But listen to him. He's very clear about it. He thinks that Israel basically has no right to exist. He has no truck or time or anger at all the great injustices committed by truly tyrannical regimes, both in the Middle East and around the world. Yet his anger, and again, this was filmed by the Oxford Union. You can watch the full thing on their YouTube channel. But bear in mind that this occurred in November the 1st, not even a month after October 7th. And his anger and vitriol after the worst attack against the Jewish people since the Holocaust occurred. And his anger is with Israel, for Israel existing. This idea of colonizers is absurd. It's a false narrative. This idea of displacement that occurred, the Palestinians being displaced and kicked out. No, they left when the Arabs waged a war on Israel existing. The displacement occurred after there was a land, splitting of the land proposed by the UN, and the Arabs rejected it. This has always been about the fact that it's the Jews returning to their land. That's what it's all comes down to that. You're really telling me when there's over 50 Muslim and Arab states, the Jews can't have one? That's your problem here? And you say, well, they want Palestinian self-determination. Well, fine, they've been offered it time and time again. It's not about that. They don't care about that. They couldn't care less about Palestinian nationalism. Couldn't care less. It's about the Jews having a state. And why is that so threatening? Because it's theological. Because if your narrative as a Muslim, as part of Islam, is that we have now superseded the Jews as God's chosen people, as God's voice to the world. God has rejected the Jews. They're now condemned to wander the earth forever, exiled from their land, dispersed, exiled, persecuted. Well, you've got a bit of a narrative going there, but what does it mean that suddenly they return to their land? God keeps his promises that he said in Deuteronomy explicitly that I'll exile you from the land and it will be desolate, but then you'll return at the end of history. I'll return you back to your land. Well, maybe God never forsook the Jewish people. Well, if you're part of an Islamist supersessionist worldview, that's extremely threatening. So Israel, this tiny Jewish state, must be either a sign that God never forsook the Jewish people and they are his eternal chosen people, chosen to be his voice to the world, or it's an evil. Israel is an evil that must be eliminated and it's a test from God. And now we understand. Now we understand that even if there was just one small pocket of Jewish sovereignty on that land, it would be unacceptable to them. Now we understand that all these lies of free Palestine and colonization and apartheid and genocide, it's all just a ploy. It's all just a ploy because they don't yet have the theological and emotional and intellectual maturity to grow up and accept the truth of who the Jewish people are and their relationship with the world's destiny, and the fact that we all have a role to play, but we all need to come into our own particular roles as nations and individuals. That's what all this comes down to. It's a childish theological mentality, and the sooner they snap out of it, the better for everyone involved. And as far as the Jewish people are concerned, we just need to continue to articulate the truth on all counts about who we are and our relationship with the land. But I want to show you this clip because it's so important to see how Ben Shapiro is able to tackle the points one at a time in a cool, calm, collected way, and to see how he's able to dismantle the lies and myths which sadly are spread around regularly. And so we need to understand and look to see that it can be done effectively. And while he may not perhaps have been convinced, many people watching, both in that audience and online will be. Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.